by way of introduction, we're going to do or have a look at, or try and have a look at patterning tonight. And just before I start, patterning can be done in sketch mode or in design mode. There's a lot of similarities, so I'm going to start off in sketch mode, and then we'll look at what options which are slightly different in the design mode, and then I'll try and give you a few minutes on which I feel is the better way as to whether you should do patterning in sketch or patterning in design. So let's share screen and make a start. So I'm gonna, as I say, I've got nothing prepared, so we really are starting from scratch. So the first thing I'll do, we'll go into create sketch, and what I'm going to do on this one is I'm just going to create a circle. Now the objects that I use for patterning tonight will be circles, squares, simple stuff, but obviously the technique involved can be used with any shape that you want, but we'll keep our shape simple. So we have a shape there, and I want to make, let's say, are you all familiar with the Connect 4 playing board, which is that frame which is full of holes. So what we're going to do is generate a series of sketches or holes based on this sketch. Now what I could be doing, obviously, I could put another one here and measure my distances and so on and so forth, which is a bit laborious. So let's have a look at the pattern tool for doing it. Let's get back to a single one. So the pattern tool is up here under the create option. And if we click on create and we come down, and we got circular and rectangle pattern. Now, unlike the other ones where we clicked on rectangle or circle and the properties box up, if you remember when we done circle, whichever one we picked in the properties box, we could re-choose it. You don't seem to be able to do that with the pattern tool, so you have to decide which one you want. We're going to go for rectangular on this one to start with. So we click on that, and as you can see, you've got no options up here. So the first thing you do is choose the object that you want to pattern. In this case, it's going to be our circle. So we select our circle, and in doing that, then the box extends out. Now we want to go horizontally and vertical. So the directions on that one is select, and we've got that direction and that direction. So they're selected fine. Now in its simplest form, all you have to do is drag these arrows to create the pattern. That way, and then that way. So having dragged them roughly, I can now explain what the box is for, if you like. Now, what I'm telling you on the box applies to both directions. Now, the extent is the distance in total between the first shape and the last shape. So if I say a distance of 80 millimeters in there, and the one that's active is the arrow that's blue, so if I put 80 millimeters in there and hit and move off it, then the distance I've got is 80 millimeters, irrespective of the number of parts. So if I increase that box from 4 to 5 to 6, whatever, the extent of the pattern is still 80 millimeters. The same thing applies in the other direction. If I was to click on that one and put an extent in there, as you can see, it's currently at minus 102 because I've gone to the left. But the same thing applies there. If I fit an extent there, and now I add the number of patterns in there from 3 to 4, you can see it still fits them within those extents. So let's go back a minute to, let's take the patterns back, 3 and that one there. So it's this one here, if you want to alter the horizontal, and this one alters the vertical. Now we've got extent. Now the other way of doing it is if we click on that and we can have spacing. And what this one does now, we have spacing. So what you're doing now is you're creating a pattern depend on the spacing. So if we were to put in this one, shall we say minus 40, you can see what we've done now. We've said we've gone from that center there to the center there is minus 40 because we're going to the left. And the same going down. If I change that one to say 20, we'll get an overlap. So your two methods of distribution is extent, which is the maximum area you want to fit them into, or spacing, which is irrelevant of the area you want to fit into, but the spacing between each pattern. Now, let me just get rid of some of these and go back to 1. So we're going back to our pattern again. We noticed there that what we're going to do is let's put a couple more in there, and we'll do extent, or we'll stick on spacing for the moment, and we'll put a few more in there. Now, that's fine, but also we have now a control box down here that we can change. One direction. When it's set on one direction doesn't mean you can't go up and down. One direction is one direction in the X or Y, whichever one you're working with. Now, sometimes you might want them equidistant either side of your center one. In which case, over here on one direction, you click this and you go down to symmetrical. And you can see now you'll get them on either side. So as we increase the number here from 3 to 4, it's no longer symmetrical. You can't have 4 symmetrical about that single point. If you think about it, to get it symmetrical, you need 1 either side or 2 either side. So to be symmetrical, you've got to have an odd number. So let's put another one in, 5. Okay? Now there's one other box we haven't looked at yet, and this is an interesting one because this is called suppression. When you click on suppression, you get a little tick box come up in the pattern. Now what this allows you to do is suppress it. So if I was to click on that one, now you might think, well, that's not a lot of good, but that's very useful when you're doing, say, a lot of pattern work and you want to create a pattern of a lot of places, but there's 1 or 2 gaps you want. So you can just suppress the ones you don't want or click them back to get them on again. So that's basically the sketching one, which hopefully was not too quick. Now, let me just put a couple more in this way. So really then, we've sketched our situation there, and that's fine. So we're going to click OK, and we're going to finish the sketch, and now we're going to extrude them. So if we extrude, so you've got to go through each one to what you want to extrude. So there's our extrusions, if you like, okay? Now, that's fine. Creating the pattern has worked. The extrusions have worked. We've got the, 5, 10 pieces that we want in the position we want them. But now we want to edit one. We want to change one. So we're going to go back in now. We want to change the pattern so they all change. So if we go back into the sketch, edit the sketch, and we say we want to add a bit on here, like so. And we want to finish that sketch, and then we want to create a new body there, for example. Let's do an extrude, and we'll pull it out there. The other thing with things like this as well, I may have mentioned it before, it will tend to default to cut or join. Sometimes it's good to create a body. A body is much more maneuverable later on than having a cut or join. But that's not what I want, because I actually want the pattern to be reproduced, and it's not reproduced. So I think you can quickly see there that when you use the sketch mode for creating a pattern, which you might well do on times, if you then come back to edit the parts in that pattern, all the parts are the same, I'd have to go through every one of these and add that extra circle or pattern that circle as well. So this leads us into the solid way of doing it now. So what I want to do is to go back there, and this time we will now do another circle there, and we'll finish it. And we'll do an extrude just to get our pattern. right, one way front. So there's our pattern. Now we want to do the same as before. This time let's pattern the solid instead. Now the pattern for that is either there, rectangular pattern, because I've put that one in my toolbar because I use it a lot. If you haven't, then it's on create and you come down here to the pattern tool, which is there, and you've got rectangular, circular or pattern on path. Now this is a handy one because it goes back to the other ones where whichever one you choose, you see the option up here. So I'm going to go for a rectangular pattern and click on that. I'm going to select that body, and now I got to select my axes. So again, switch the origin back on, and the axes I'm going to select simply, I'm just going to go that one this time and pull that out. And again, we've got the symmetrical option there, and also we've got the suppress command. So let's just zoom down a bit and let's just do that in there, and let's just create a couple more. Whoops. And another one to make it even. So there, I shan't do the top line. It's the same principle, just pull them up, okay? But for the moment, well, let's take them up just to show what we're doing. And again, you can have the suppress command. So if you click on that again, now you can tick off ones you don't want. And okay, I've ticked the wrong one. How do I get back to it? If I come down here and click on here, and I can edit rectangular pattern, I can now go back in, and if that's not showing, use the tick box, click on that, and I get my pattern back again. So there's my rectangular pattern. But I want to change the pattern of one of them. But what I can do now, of course, is I can go back into my sketch. There. I can now add a new part to it, like so. I can take, so that's my part there, and then when I do finish sketch, they've all got it. Now if I have, as you see, if I have done the pattern in sketch mode, I would have to go back and change every sketch that I've got. But if I pattern in body mode, in design mode, any alterations to that sketch get taken in. So it would be edit sketch, and let's suppose I put, let's shove another one in there, like so, and this time we'll do something, let's do a cutaway instead, like so, and then finish the sketch, and there they all are. So you can see the sketch can be powerful. Now, one of the things you can do now, of course, is you can add on the sketch, and in which case, if you add, suppose we want to add something to this particular pattern, then create sketch on that surface, and I will go in and create something on there, finish sketch, and let's extrude that out. And now what I would do with that one, I wouldn't say join, because if I say join, it makes that whole body different to the rest. So, and I might want to go back and edit them. So I would always treat that as a new body. That way, that sketch is still there. So if I now go back into the first one and edit the sketch, and say this time, I don't know, let's put an odd shape in there, and we'll take that bit out, and we'll take that bit out, and we'll go finish sketch. You can see now, and it's done that, whereas joining it can tend to mess it up a bit. One of the things in sketch mode to remember as well is that if I was to take this and highlight that, and then go in to create a rectangle pattern, the construction lines will go with it as well. So everything you highlighted will create the pattern. That's the rectangle pattern. So let's quickly look at the other one, which is the circular pattern. Now again, it works in very much the same way. We'll look at the sketch first. We will put a a sketch in there, and I'm going to put a, remember last week we looked at points, and I'm going to put a point there for reference, okay? So now what I can do is, let's go back on the front one, I'm in the circular pattern, create pattern, circular pattern. I can now click on the pattern. Well, let's make a body first, sorry, otherwise nothing's going to happen. Body, front, okay, back into pattern, circular pattern there, and we select the body, which is there, and we select the axis, which is going to be down there, sorry, on there, and you can see how you can now create a circular pattern. Circular patterns are, again, we've seen the circular pattern used last week with, or last Thursday with the clock, and that's another way of doing it. Exactly the same as a rectangle, and you've got the suppression mode and the quantity and the extent to which you do it. Let me just go back one, and let's cancel that and go back into, which mode am I going to go into? I want to go into that mode in a moment. Let me just bear with me 1 minute while I move that sketch. Let me take that sketch out of the way, and let me draw a sketch instead up here. So let me get rid of that one. And then on this one now, let's just extend it out again. If it doesn't come, it's probably because you've got the bodies turned off. So there's the body there that we're going to do. So now if we do a circular sketch now, pattern, circular, click on that one, choose our axis. So in this time, at this time now, I'm going to use the green axis so I can get at it, which is axis, that's better, there. And you can see now, and you can add them. Now on the other one, on this one, we got is distribution. Full means the full circle. Partial means partial, that's the number, and that's the partial you want. And symmetric, we've already done, it means going either side of the pattern itself. And then that's the extent one. All right, now we've got another area in here which I'll come on to, because down in this we've got some options that I'll show you when we do the line path. So let's look at the line path a moment. So what we're going to do on that one, let me create a box. Now of course you can create, it can be any shape you want. The fact that I'm using a box as a material, and we extend that out, and we've got that one. Now what I want to do is I want a pattern. I'm going to put a pattern on this top one, and again I'm going for my little circle. So I'm going to put a circle on there, finish this sketch. I'm now going to extrude that circle and make sure it's a new body there. Okay, and okay. Now with the pattern command, create, and go on to path. And with the path command we can pick a body. So this time I'm going to pick that body. The path I'm going to pick is that path there. And let's go, and now when I bring it round, not really working very well. And that takes us now down to this bottom line down here, orientation, identical. What that means, we're creating a pattern with that body, but whilst the bodies are following the path, the bodies remain identical to the original one. Not what I want. I really want the bodies sticking out from their relative faces the same as the top one. So we click on that one and we go in path direction, and they then take up the path direction. Let's put a few more in there. Let's put 4 in. And again, you've got extent, the same as we used last time, or you can use spacing, the same as we used last time on the other one, so I won't go in again. And again, one direction or symmetrical. You might well want to go symmetrical, which will end up. Symmetrical can be handy when you're, I'll show you that when you're putting things round a round curve, which we'll do in a moment. And then clicking on OK, and there they are. Now, if I go in and alter that one, then these will alter as well in the same way as I showed you before. But what I want to do now is just show you one more instance. So let's just go back to this. And I'm going to go back to there. Now let's suppose, for the sake of argument, I'd extruded that and I'd left it on join. So this is one body now. I hope. There you go, one body. Now I'm going to go into my create a pattern. So I create, and I'm going to do pattern, and I'll go back to pattern on a path again. Now I can't pick the body because I saved it and it's all joined. But what I can do now, come off that a moment, and I can go down to pattern on a path, and what I can do now, I can pick faces or features. Now if I do features, I can click on that, select the path, and adjust that to path direction, and off we go again. Now on some occasions you'll find that sometimes the features won't work. It depends what you've drawn. So the answer therefore is yet another way of doing it, and this applies to rectangle and circular patterns. The fact I'm showing you on a path is the same for the other two as well. Pattern, path, and this time let's look at faces. So what I can do this time is pick the face and pick the face. Select the path, path direction, and away we go again. So you can see that you can move bodies, faces, or features. Now with the features, with the faces, if for example I was to go into faces, and I haven't tried this, so I hope it's going to do what I want. If I go into faces and select that one and then go to path, it will move the faces path direction in that way, but nothing happens because of course it's a face. It's got no extrusion, there's no depth to it, so it won't actually copy a single face. You have to have sufficient faces to complete a whole, as it were. A little bit like when you're sketching, that if you sketch a box but leave a gap in it, it's an incomplete drawing. Now the other thing I was going to show you very quickly, which I will do, is back to the circular one. So we go quickly back into sketch. How are we off for time, John? We're not too bad. And I'm going to do a circular one there, and we'll finish. We'll give it a quick extrude. And what I'm going to do now is go onto this face. And again, I could now go in the sketch and I'm going to put that on there, and it's going to be quite a simple one really. I think is I'm just going to leave it like that, yes. And then what I'm going to do is finish it. So now what I'm going to do is highlight that. I'm going to extrude it to the other side. There. Make it a new body. I can now go and do in my pattern, and I'm going to do a circular pattern this time. And I choose the pattern, the body there, I then choose the axis, which I'm going to do, let's have a look which way. It's going to be the green one, and I'm going to go full and fill them in like so. Now I know I've used circles, but I think with a little bit of imagination you can all see if I'd have changed that shape there, then that's a nice quick way of creating simple gear wheels. And I can change it, because if I go back into my sketch there now, edit the sketch, and although I haven't got a dimension on it, let's put a dimension on. Remember we talked about this previously, add a dimension. So it's 22 at the moment, so I'll change that to 15 and finish the sketch, and they've all gone down to 15. If I'd have sketched all of them, unless I got them tied together, it gets awkward. So you can see that whilst you can use sketch patterning for sketches, I would say 80 to 85% of my work is patterning with bodies, because I just like working that way.